self-sustaining athletic departments. They run almost as a separate business and entity from the university. It's all privately run with the private funds and the revenue that they get from ticket sales and other things like conference revenues and things of that nature. They are not taking any money from the university, state appropriated. In fact, both of those programs, Clemson and USC in particular, pay money back to those schools as far as trying to help them out for their finances. So, from that standpoint, this is not any of your state money unless you're a donor of Clemson's IPTAY program.
But the person is right. I don't know if he was tweeting about a classroom in a high school somewhere or at a college somewhere. It's no excuse for our state not to properly fund our schools so that all the schools have proper working desks and everything else that those kids need.
Nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with this issue, though. Nothing to do with
this
issue. It's all Clemson.
It doesn't directly. But you know what? All the people giving millions of dollars to support the football programs, wouldn't they be really, truly? Wouldn't that money be better spent being sent to our education system to better educate our kids and to make sure that all the kids in the poor counties get good educations?
He was talking about Clemson in particular because I guess in his in the person who tweeted us his bio, it said Clemson University. So I'm guessing they're either a student at Clemson or something of that nature. But again, your issue is not necessarily with the state, it's with the people who are donating money to the Clemson athletic department. If you have an issue with people who are donating to the athletic department and not the academics, that's a whole different issue. But
I'm just saying that it just kind of shows you where the priorities are in our state, and we've known this for a long, long time. I'm saying people can give their money wherever they want to, but it's a sad day if we can't afford to properly educate our kids either in college or in high school. All right, we got to hit a break. David Shelton coming up, also Dan Radakovich. Don't leave us. We'll be right back. I don't want to look at it. Instead of both. Man, don't they make those guys wear jocks when they're doing the weigh-in before fights? My goodness, that was embarrassing for McGregor. He's a little overly excited, I'd say. Did you see that, Will?
Premature.
Yeah, okay. Let's just say he was a little excited to be there.
Premature excitement, a little excitement out of him.
Let's just say he was a little excited about being there. Speaking of being excited, let's welcome in David Shelton of the High School Sports Report and the Charleston Post and Courier as we go to week 1 of the high school football schedule. Week 2, if you follow along on your calendar, since games were played last week. David, how are you?
I'm very excited, but I am wearing jeans, so you wouldn't be able to tell.
Oh, that's funny. That's very funny.
You're an excitable kind of guy. All right, we got some good ones tonight. I'm going to throw some games here at you, and you tell me what you think, and some others that you like. I've got Burns and Greer, 2 teams coming off nice wins last week. How about Union County and Gaffney? Dorman and Northwestern trying to bounce back from losses last week. What do you think of those games?
Yeah, those are all going to be very important games, even though it's early in the season. You know, Dorman, Northwestern both lost sort of badly by a lot of points, I guess you'd say. So both are growing and trying to find out who the new guys are going to be. So big win for whichever team can come up with that one. Same thing with Union County Gaffney, both coming off losses to good teams. Nobody wants to be 0-2. I mean, that's obvious. So, and you throw in the fact that they're, Gaffney and Union are pretty good rivals. Should be a lot of excitement there. And I think the game of the night is Greer Burns. I think, Greer beat Greer beat Westside last week pretty handily. Burns totally destroyed Myrtle Beach. But, we're not sure how good either one of those teams were, Myrtle Beach or Westside. So we're going to find out which one of these teams, Greer or Burns, is the real deal. And I think that'll be a very competitive, exciting game.
What about the impact of the suspensions for Spartanburg and Somerville? Are both teams taking their medicine tonight?
Well, Somerville's off. They will take their medicine next week when they play Berkeley. They'll miss their 8 guys, 5 of which are on defense. And then Spartanburg's guys are sitting tonight against T. Hanna. Again, Spartanburg being 0-2, that would just sound really weird to say that. Doesn't roll off the tongue very easily in the last few years. So very important game for them. They are missing some guys, eight guys that were on the field that night. And T.O. Hanna coming off a win over Gaffney's obviously trying to prove that wasn't a fluke last week.
How do you feel about the way that whole situation was handled in the aftermath? Again, not necessarily knowing, having been there, but how do you feel that was all handled?
Well, I think the high school league did what they said they were going to do. All summer long, all year long, they preached to high school coaches. I was sitting in the coaches clinic in July when they had the big meeting with the head coaches, and Charlie Winsky from the high school league said, "We are not going to tolerate unsportsmanlike conduct of any kind, fighting, whatever. And if a scuffle breaks out and one of your players puts their hands on another player, whether he punches him, pushes him, shoves him, whatever, he's going to sit." And they went through the film. There were only 4 players ejected last Friday night. So they went back and found on the film 12 more that didn't act right. So you know what? I mean, you can't say they ain't been warned. And this was an example made in week 0, first week of the year. Guys, we're serious about this, and they are evaluating these films, whether you're ejected or not. If they think you took part, you're going to sit a game. So, Joe Call told me, he's like, "Hey, we knew it, and we preached to our kids about it, and people lose their cool a little bit." But he goes, hopefully, we've learned a valuable lesson about it.
All right, David, moving on to some other good games tonight. Chapman at Seneca, 2 top 10 teams in 3A. What do you think of this matchup?
Yeah, I'm not sure about Seneca yet. I think we're going to need a few weeks to see what they are, but I think we are sure that Chapman is really explosive offensively, and they're going to score some points. Just about anybody they play. So I would think Chapman will win that game tonight. But like I said, we're still waiting on Seneca. Seneca's probably going to be a team to reckon with towards the end of the year. But Chapman is a team to reckon with right now because they got a lot of guys back.
We saw a lot of offense last week between both Bishop England and West Ashley. They square off tonight. How do you see that one swinging?
I see a lot of offense again. I think both these teams have good enough athletes to score on each other. You know, which West Ashley's kind of own the series, which they should. They're a 5A school, but Bishop England has been competitive in some matchups. I think this Bishop England team is as good as they've been since they won back-to-back state titles in 11 and 12. So I look for this to be a competitive game, and I look for some points. I don't think it's going to be a 7-6. Now, I will say the Low Country got deluged with a massive thunderstorm earlier today that just it rained and rained. Fort Dorchester's already postponed their game till tomorrow. So the fields around here are going to be soggy and wet, which may dictate some of the play. But, I mean, it was raining so hard through my neighborhood. I looked out and saw pairs of animals marching down the street heading for the ark. So, I mean, it was coming down. It was it caught me by total surprise. My neighborhood flooded and for about an hour in the north area, Goose Creek, North Charleston, Stratford, that area, it rained really hard.
Yeah, I also saw where Myrtle Beach is going to have to play its game tonight at home in the on the adjoining field outside of its main stadium because they're having some issues with their turf over there.
Well, they played at 4 o'clock. Their game's almost over.
Oh, is that right? They played at 4 o'clock? Yeah,
they're losing 40-24 the last I saw.
Myrtle Beach is losing 40-20. What is wrong with their defense?
Well, we found out last week that they lost 8 or 9 starters, and they were repairing it and gave up 51 points. And this team, Charlotte Christian, I think it is, they're pretty good offensively. So I think their quarterback has 6 touchdown passes tonight from what I saw. I've been following Joe Hughes on Twitter from the Sun News, and looks like they're giving up a lot of points again.
All right, let me ask you about last night. Hartsville had a real dogfight with South Florence. I thought that was going to be a blowout by Hartsville. It was anything but. I think it was a missed extra point, the difference. How about the way the Bruins hung in there with Hartsville last night?
Well, I think South Florence is better. I think they're better than they've been the last 2 years. I don't know how many games they're going to win, but I was kind of shocked that it was as close as it was, and that South Florence really probably deserved to win the game. I don't know. I didn't see it, but I was just reading things about it. But Hartsville's very talented, very good. So for South Florence to really have a chance to win that game and just miss the extra point to send it to overtime, I think that bodes well for them. And I think you'll see both teams win their share. Hartsville especially. I think Hartsville's going to be a very good team down the stretch.
All right, David, where are you headed tonight?
I'm headed over to Berkeley and Stratford, and which is good for me because it's only about 10 minutes from where I live. And so I've had my afternoon nap and my afternoon meal and my pregame meal, and I'm ready to suit up and go.
Well, listen, after you're done, go by and visit with our friend Bob over at the Honky Tonk Saloon and tell him I said hello.
I may do that. I talked to him today via text. Tried to talk him into getting that McGregor fight, but he's not going to do it.
All right, my friend. We'll talk to you tonight on the Scoreboard Shows.
Okay, man.
All right, David Shelton, High School Sports Report. I call him BIB, Best in Business, Bib. And he'll be with us for our high school scoreboards tonight, 10, 10:30, and 11. All the scores that you can stomach in 5 minutes from all across the state of South Carolina. All right, when we come back from the break, Dan Radakovich, Athletics Director at Clemson, will talk to us about this new deal that the school struck up with Dabo Sweeney and other things going on at Clemson as we head into another football season. Dan Rad coming up next here on Sports Talk. Welcome back into Sports Talk, everybody. South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornblutz, along with Will Pelagic,
Sir.
Jared Rogers-Martin. By the way, the professor, Tom Hayes, he's been off this week on vacation. He'll be back in with us next week. And we've got a lot to do on this Friday night edition of Sports Talk, as right now we welcome in the athletics director from Clemson, Dan Radakovich. A big day over in Tigertown with the announcement that head football coach Dabo Swinney has agreed to a contract extension that ties him with the Tigers through 2024 and is valued at $54 million. Dan, first of all, welcome in. Thank you for joining us. And you guys got any money left in the bank?
Oh, we have a few nickels left. Absolutely. Good to talk with you, Phil.
As always. So tell me what it's like basically to write a check for $54 million to somebody.
Well, I wouldn't know because this will happen over 8 years. So we'll be, Dabo is certainly in an interesting neighborhood now with the four active coaches that have won national championships. And as you know from being a South Carolinian, he is an incredible ambassador for the institution, a tremendous football coach, has done great things during his tenure here, and it was something that we wanted to do. It kind of took the better part of the summer just because of the unfortunate passing of Dabo's longtime representative, Mike Brown, and him taking some time to get some representation. And when that was all pulled together, we were able to sit down and begin discussions, and really didn't take an incredible amount of time. It was just a little elongated because of summer and various people's travel and vacation schedules. But to say the least, we are incredibly excited about having Coach here and locked up and signed in for another 8 years of leading the Clemson Tigers.
When you're dealing with his representatives and maybe talking to him a little bit and you're throwing numbers around and this, that, and the other, I mean, how do you get to a number that makes everybody satisfied? How do you get to that, in this case, the $54 million total dollars that makes up the contract?
Well, I think you first of all, you look at the market that he's in, the active coaches that have won national championships. That's the neighborhood that you start in, and then you understand exactly where your limitations are as an institution, and you just kind of talk back and forth and make sure that you hit on the things, the incentive package, the buyouts, and all those other things that were fairly simple to pull together, and then you just continue to work on that final number, and we were able to come to a good conclusion.
Dan, it's interesting looking at kind of some of the different things that happen over the course of a college football offseason. As you know, it's incredibly long. The rumor mill starts going. How important was this for you to get done before the 2017 football season begins and before we even get to the next football offseason when certainly the rumor mill will start back up again?
Well, I think, Will, was really important because, it was one of those things where, once you've attained the goal of winning a national championship, you're looked at a little differently. You see the coaches that are there now, and certainly when marquee jobs are open, their names are always bandied about. Whether there's interest or not, that's a whole different issue. But certainly the names are bandied about, and we wanted to make sure that we know that Coach Swinney and his staff and his family, they're great fits here at Clemson. And we wanted to make sure to make a statement, as did he, want to make a statement that he's here at Clemson for the long term. And I think that's what we were able to accomplish.
Talking with Dan Radakovich, Clemson's athletic director. So you've got him under contract through 2024, and of course your hope is that he will continue to win at a very high level and graduate his players at a very high level. And let's just say hypothetically everything goes great and Dabo continues to win big and the athletes are behaving properly and graduate, everything just continues to go great. Is it your intention from what you want and believe and maybe what you understand from him that Dabo Swinney will never coach anywhere else other than Clemson?
That's our hope and desire, and if all the things that you just describe come to fruition, which we have a great deal of confidence that they will, especially under his leadership, I think that at Clemson, with the commitment of our board of trustees and our president and all the things that we've been able to pull together from a facility perspective, we don't believe that there's any place else that Coach would want to go. So we'd want to keep him right here in Clemson, South Carolina.
What can you?
Would that include Alabama? Would that include Alabama? I mean, can you tell us if you guys have ever talked about the idea that one day Saban is going to step down and the people there are going to come hard after him? Has that ever come up in your conversations?
No, not really, Phil. It never did. I think this was all about Dabo and Clemson, and as you look into the future, there's thousands of variables that are out there, but we're dealing with what we can control at this point in time, and we want to do, and we did accomplish the fact of making sure that he is greatly appreciated here for what he has done and the foundation and the incredibly elite program that he's been able to pull together and give him an understanding that he is a valued and important employee.
Clemson AD Dan Radakovich joining us here on Sports Talk. Will Pelagic, Phil Kornblut here with you on South Carolina Radio Network. What can you tell us about the assistant coach's compensation? How has that changed, or did that change?
No, we kind of did that in February. We did that. We kind of do that at the end of each and every year. So there was no adjustments to any of those contracts as they were done earlier.
So Venables is happy, is what you're telling us.
He is very happy, and we're very happy with him, and really can't wait to have his son Jake on our squad as well.
Can you tell us, as you were going through the negotiations and you got to the final number, I mean, did you have to come up to meet what they wanted, or did they have to come down to meet what you were willing to spend?
Yeah, I don't know that I want to go there, Phil. It was a very amiable negotiation. Russ Campbell and Patrick Strong of Balk Sports were Dabo's representatives, and our team of Graham Neff, my deputy AD, and Chip Hood, our general counsel, myself. We worked together very well. I think that it was a good and positive negotiation.
All right, now shifting gears very quickly to the start of the football season. You have a home game next week against Kent State. Then Auburn comes to town. Our good friends down at the Citadel, one of our state-supported brethren here in South Carolina, the makers of fine men and women, they're going to have a beer garden at their home football games starting this season. And, I know there's a lot of beer floating around in the parking lots outside of Death Valley, but you foresee the time when the general public will be able to purchase beer inside Death Valley during football games?
Phil, that's not one of the things that is on the fast track at Memorial Stadium. As you mentioned, we have enough beer gardens around Memorial Stadium that we might not need to do that. No, that's not something that we're contemplating right now. I think the atmosphere and things inside the stadium and what our fan base is looking for when they come into the stadium, a safe environment and one that really lends to the great atmosphere that's there. At this point in time, it's not something that we're contemplating, the sale of beer inside Memorial Stadium.
All right, we're going to let you go. I know it's been a long day for you, and we appreciate you joining us tonight here on Sports Talk. Congratulations on getting the deal done once again with Dabo Swinney and keeping him locked in with the Tigers for many years to come. Look forward to seeing you during the season.
Thanks, Phil and Will. Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, Dan.
Take care.
You got it, Dan. Dan Radakovich, Athletics Director at Clemson. $54 million investment. It's an investment. You're investing in people. You're investing in a person, and they feel like that they've got the guy that's going to lead them for the distant future at Clemson and keep their program at a very high level. We'll be right back here on Sports Talk.
A lot of people are going to be playing Debo heavy. Hopefully, I can just come in and take pressure off Debo. Those guys are going to be. Hopefully, I can just come in Debo heavy. Hopefully, I can.
648 on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Will Pelagic, Phil Kornblue, producer Jared Rogers-Martin. Again, our thanks to Dan Radakovich, the Clemson athletic director, for spending a couple minutes with us on the day that they award Dabo Swinney the third richest contract in college football for a head coach. And just kind of thinking about some of the things that Mr. Radakovich said, Phil, it really does kind of speak to where the market is for college football, like we were talking about earlier. But I think it does, at least for now, deter any talk about going back to the alma mater and going to Alabama. Whether you want to believe what he said about them not ever having that discussion, that remains to be seen. You can believe that or not. But in my mind, they're trying to do everything they can to make sure that the team that has the elephants doesn't come a-calling.
Well, for sure. And, look, if you're Dabo Swinney, let's think about this logically. You're Dabo Swinney. You've built a power where you are at Clemson. I mean, you have taken this to another level. Tommy Bowden got it rolling in terms of getting the new facilities in place, and he just could not sustain the winning and get it to the highest level. Dabo's been able to do that. Not only that, they've added to the facilities with the new football operations building, which is fantastic. We mentioned what's going on in his personal life with the family and the new home that they're building. So the roots are really planted deep with him at Clemson. And again, what could you do at Alabama that you haven't already done at Clemson? And on top of that, the Alabama faithful are of another kind. And while Clemson fans are rabid, they're not cuckoo.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
No.
They're not,
Alabama,
they're not nuts.
It's a different animal. Different animal.
Exactly. And why would you want to – not that it's comfortable anywhere. No college coach can be comfortable if you're not winning, okay? And it can get away from you. It can get away from you pretty quickly. There's plenty of coaches who are on top for a couple of years, and all of a sudden they're swimming underwater. So you have to be careful about that. But it just doesn't make – when you think about it logically, it just –
the alma mater is a draw.
The only thing would be the heartstrings. Yeah, if there's some real strong pull of the heart. But he has surrounded himself with so many Alabama people. He's got his brother there involved with the program. He's basically taken the Alabama concept and put it in place at Clemson. So I don't ever see him leaving Clemson, to be quite honest with you. He's 48.
He's
44?
He'll be 48 this year. He's
48, so he's going to be hitting 50 in a couple of years. And at that stage of life, he's not going to be one who wants to probably coach into his 70s. So you're probably talking another 10, 15 years. Tops.
I can't say that I'm necessarily confident or as confident as you in that fact, but today's action is a statement that Clemson is willing to pay to keep him under most circumstances, under any circumstance, really, from that matter. And the one thing that this does say is that Clemson, if Dabo does end up leaving, it won't be about the money. It'll be about the draw and about the heartstrings with Alabama and more of the personal draw from that perspective. Back in the Midlands, South Carolina practiced this morning, basically going through some of their initial preparations for NC State. We hadn't talked to those guys in a couple of days. They had Wednesday and Thursday off as they started school. They had meetings on Thursday. But as they turn towards the collegiate football season beginning a week from tomorrow for them in Charlotte against NC State, the conversation turned towards the running backs and wide receivers, particularly with the wide receivers. We found out yesterday that Shi Smith is going to be a starting wide receiver in their base 3-wide set. That does not include the tight ends if they end up using that. And Smith, of course, the freshman, sensational man. He's probably had the best camp of any of the freshman skill position players upcoming. Man that he'll be playing opposite him is Brian Edwards. He'll also be playing opposite Deebo Samuel, and Edwards says the thing that he wants to do is take the pressure off of Deebo.
Hopefully, I can just come in and take pressure off Deebo. Those guys are going to be worried about him heavily, so I'll be man-to-man most of the time, so I just got to take some pressure off him and make plays.
What have you noticed as the biggest change in Jake's preparation, or is it his demeanor, leadership? What's the biggest change in him?
Jake's always been a solid guy, always been a smart guy, and always been well prepared for everything. But, the biggest difference in him is just the control he has of the offense and the understanding. He's more comfortable, and he's just more confident. He's just making calls, checks at the line. Jake's going to be Jake. He's a ball player. Would you say that Shi might be the one who's made the most progress in your group? He's a starter, so I guess you could say that, yeah. But Shi, he's a quick guy. He's just so explosive, and he makes great plays when the ball's in the air. He's gonna be a great kid. What does that do for the rest of you guys in the room who are older and having that, the younger presence and guys pushing you in that form? It gives you confidence knowing you got a younger guy coming along, and we just got to keep him coming along, keep him progressing, not allow him to get comfortable, and just keep him coming and keep him on the right track. I'd almost make the analogy with Shi Smith as being kind of the Christmas present sitting under the tree from the South Carolina Gamecock recruiting class, and I'm ready to open the package, Phil. I want to see what that package looks like on the football field come 2017 and come this year. I just think that offense can open up so many more avenues the more he's on the field.
Well, we shall see next Saturday against a very good NC State defense. And if the Gamecock offensive line can give Jake Bentley some time to stand in the pocket and look down the field, he should be able to hook up with Brian Edwards and Shi Smith and Hayden Hurst and Deebo and all those other receivers. That is what their plan is, and I'll be surprised if it doesn't work well for them. All right, let's do recruiting before we hit the top of the hour break. George Bryan III coming up as we're into the PGA playoffs. We'll talk some birdies and bogeys around the state with GB3. No full Monty on NASCAR tonight. There's no race this weekend. Monty's doing high school football, so we have given him the night off from that. We can take some calls in our next hour as well, 800-956-7266, and we are going to deliver a punch or two about the big fight tomorrow night. If you're going to spend the money to watch that, we'll talk. We'll give you our picks on that. Also, we're going to give you our season predictions, wins and losses, the records for USC and Clemson coming up in hour number 2. So stay tuned. Defensive back J.C. Horn of Alpharetta, Georgia, of course, committed to Tennessee last night over USC and Alabama, but he did confirm to us via text message last night that he will take visits to his other finalists. He did not specify dates or if those visits will be official or unofficial. Offensive lineman Jovan Gwynn of Charlotte plans to be at the USC-NC State game Saturday in Charlotte, next Saturday, that is. Those two, along with Duke, make up his final 3. All are recruiting him hard. He's talking with coaches from all 3. However, he wants to see how they look in person, not just the words that he's being told. So he wants to get to games at USC and Raleigh and in Durham to watch the teams up close. He wants to see how the offensive line plays. Now, his parents want him to take officials, but he said he could go ahead and make a decision before doing that if, after watching these teams play, he determines that a school is where he wants to be. Academically, he was going to study business or engineering, and he said if it's engineering, then he's looking at Duke or NC State. If it's business, it's more USC and Duke. He said all are pushing him about the same. According to a tweet from his mother, 2019 offensive lineman Harry Miller of Beaufort, Georgia, plans to visit Clemson unofficially for the Florida State game November 11th. He's also going to games at Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, and Georgia, with more to be scheduled. offered 2019 receiver Julian Barnett of Belleville, Michigan. Basketball, 6'5" Aaron Neesmith of Portugal taking a visit to Florida this weekend. This is his second visit. He went to Vanderbilt earlier in the month. He has not scheduled any others. He has USC, Georgetown, Virginia Tech, Harvard, and Yale on his short list. And 6'7" Amanzi Nguemezi of Savannah released a top 7 last night. Clemson's on the list with Tennessee, UAB, Georgia, Temple, Wichita State, and Virginia Tech. Clemson was his first ACC offer, so he feels some loyalty towards Brad Brownell. He has not, however, scheduled an official with the Tigers. He has set up officials with Georgia for next weekend, Tennessee on September 8th, and Wichita on September 22nd. He averaged 15 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 blocks per game last season. There you go with the recruiting report for tonight. Check it out on our website regularly, SportsTalkSC.com. Top of the hour. We'll be back. That was good, Jarmark. Can you give me one more good burp before I progress? Thank you. Can we include that in the recruiting report? The burp? Can you give me progress? Thank All right, here we go. Coming down in 3, 2, 1. Offensive lineman Jovan Gwynn of Charlotte plans to be at the USC-NC State game this Saturday in Charlotte. Those two, along with Duke, make up his final 3. He said all 3 are recruiting him hard, and he wants to see all 3 in action before making a decision. He also might take official visits before he makes his decision. Offensive lineman Harry Miller of Buford, Georgia, one of the top prospects in Georgia in the 2019 class, plans to visit Clemson officially. Let's pick it up with him again. In 3, 2, 1. 2019 offensive lineman Harry Miller of Buford, Georgia, plans to visit Clemson unofficially for the Florida State game November 11th. He's also going to games at Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, and others. Clemson offered 2019 receiver Julian Barnett of Belleville, Michigan. In basketball, 6'5" Aaron Neesmith of Portugal took an official visit to Florida over the weekend, and Clemson's in the final 7 with 6'7" Amanzi Nguemezi of Savannah. Phil Kornbluth, South Carolina, Radio Network Sports. (2019) offensive lineman Harry Miller of Buford, Georgia, plans to visit Clemson with him again. Offensive lineman Harry Miller of Buford. Offensive lineman Harry Miller of 2019 his decision. 2019 offensive lineman Harry Miller of offensive lineman Jovan Gwynn of Charlotte plans to be at the That's beautiful, but you have a beautiful setting. It has. You kind of let it slip away. It has hit the road. What are you going to do about that? Good luck. I know you have. I believe I can text her right now. Here's the key. So I live in Plantation Park. She'll come over and hammer the thing. What's it cost? 2 bills? Go Yankees.
Does Harold have a baseball team? Harold Colton?
No.
Football?
No.
Used to be. He used to vote for the Packers and Colts. He used to vote for Colts.
My brother?
I thought he did.
I don't think so.
Cool. Did you see that they were announcing moving away? Did you see that?
Oh, yeah.
That's why he had a home.
Yeah. Plus, he's probably, what are those guys taking? I mean, they're taking.
Are you saying he's close?
My mouse is.
All right, what you doing tomorrow? Well, I'm working my man in the yard till about 1.
Okay.
You put some lunch after that.
Yeah, you want to grab some lunch?
What time are you leaving for Columbia?
Probably about 3.
You got to work in the yard?
Yeah, I'm going to get up in the morning, hang out in the yard.
You can go home and bang out Marisa.
Well, that remains to be seen. Things to be seen. You know, at our agency, come on, let's face it.
Banging out.
We ain't doing much of nothing.
It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth and Will Pelagic. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Welcome back, everybody. Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network on a Friday night. Hope you've had a great day and a great week. This is it. Gentlemen, look at your wives, look at your girlfriends, look at your children. Have a good weekend with them. And then say, folks, I'll see you in about 3 months because I'm going to play college football starting next week. Actually, there are some games this week. We'll get into that in just a little bit, but the bulk of the competition begins all across the country next Saturday, and this is when grown men become little children all over again, for sure. Looking forward to it. But before we get to all of that, one thing my man George Bryan III used to always tell me, and you'll vouch for this, George, he loves college football Saturdays. Why? Because that just opens up the fairways for him, correct?
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Now you're speaking my language.
Brother Phil.
plenty of room for you to play on a Saturday. Good to have you back with us, GB3, and we've got the first event in the playoffs, the Northern Trust, going on up in Old Westbury, New York. Are you up there with the young'un?
I'm not yet, but I'm on standby. He made the cut on the number, but while I'm on standby, I'm standing by at Fox Run Country Club. So I am on location. It's just not the PGA Tour site.
You mean Fox Run over near Darlington, Hartsville?
Fox Run over in Fountain Inn, up just outside of Greenville.
Okay.
I'm guest of David Fells and Mike Hamilton, PGA pros, and just played golf with Jose Alvarez, who used to pitch for the Braves, and Doug Brown, who he's not a former league, major league, he's Major League Baseball player. He's just a major league good guy. And then my partner, Chase Butler, we just now are walking off the 9th hole, and it is beautiful to play golf. And you're right. So football season means Saturdays, the golf course is wide open. So that's the tip for tonight. Remember that. Make your time, cut the football game, and play golf.
Yes. All right, now let's take a look at the leaderboard. Jonathan Vegas?
Jonathan Vegas.
Jonathan, I love his last name. Jonathan Vegas. He's at 6 under. Dustin Johnson's at 6 under, 65-69 for him. Ricky Fowler, Jordan Spieth, they're all at 6 under. Matt Kuchar is at 5 under with Bubba Watson. And then as far as the local contingent goes, besides Dustin, we've got Russell Henley, who started with a 64. He's at 4 under. Lucas Glover, he is at even par. William McGurk's even. Scott Brown is even. Kyle Stanley is 1 over. Kevin Kisner is 1 over. And then you mentioned Wesley is 2 over on the cut line. Bill Haas at +4 missed the cut. Ben Martin +7 missed the cut. What are you hearing from Wesley about the conditions out there and what this course is playing like?
Well, it's playing right up Dustin Johnson's alley, and this is pretty good. Wesley's game is in great shape, and although I haven't spoken in person a lot with him, his caddy Willie says his game is in great shape. And when Wesley's game is good, you just never can tell. Get there on Sunday and see how the putter goes. But I've talked about John Rahm all year, and after watching him at the U.S. Open, Colonial in the U.S. Open up close, if he gets to putting well, this is a track perfect for him. Absolutely perfect. It's long, got to drive it good, got to hit irons good. Jonathan Vegas, by the way, is a great ball striker, and these guys we're talking about are really, really good.
This is a relatively new golf course, GB, and obviously the tournament formerly known as the Barclays. This course actually got renovated after Superstorm Sandy came through and ravaged Long Island and the Jersey Shore. Well, what can you tell us about just the player reaction as far as what they're seeing? It's been called the Augusta of the North by a couple of different publications. What are your impressions of it as it's played over the first 2 days of this tournament?
It's a bit unusual. I have not spoken directly with players, so I'd be going based on media comments. But the caddies, like I said, I spoke to Willie, and you got to drive your golf ball. That's Wesley's caddy, Willie Lanieri's from Augusta. You got to drive your golf ball. If you drive it long and good, you're in position to score. But it's a ball striker's paradise, no question.
George, what about Doc Redman?
How about that? Right here at Fox Run, another young, well, he's not that young anymore, but we got a former U.S. amateur champion that plays right here out of Fox Run, and his name, what is Chris Patton? I was about to have a brain cramp on the air. But Doc Redman, another Clemson Tiger, wins a USM. It's spectacular. I mean, golf in South Carolina, we are a world destination now for producing talent. Just come to South Carolina if you want to do something spectacular.
Mm-hmm. What about Larry Penley and what he's done with that program over all these years and continues to do? They had a great year last year until they got to the NCAA tournament, and then they just fell apart. But year in and year out, they're always right there, and he's always producing All-Americans. And then every so often he has that guy emerge to go win a big trophy.
If you take a look at what he inspires players at 18 years old to pursue their dreams, and that's the one thing that you can. The PGA Tour is full of Clemson Tigers, and he's as good college coach as I've ever known, and so he just keeps doing what he does, and it's a lot of fun. He's also a good guy, and he despite Wesley George with Gamecocks, I mean, he's a lot above that, and he loves to compete. And what he does is pass along and keeps these dreams going for these young men, and it's fun to see. It's not, and by the way, it's not just Clemson. It's all these programs in South Carolina are producing a lot of talent too now, and I can't wait. This is next week. The college golf season gets started, and it'll be fun following those Tigers. That's what I like to do, and the Gamecocks, and the Chanticleers, and the Cougars, and then I kind of forget some of the other mascots. You cover me on that.
Yes, we'll take care of it.
We saw the leaderboard again, George. This is not necessarily a scramblers game. This is, like you said, more of a ball strikers game because of the way the deep bunkers run there. Who are you looking for this weekend, whether it's somebody inside the top four or outside that you might see make a run?
I like Dustin and Ricky, and I like Kuchar. I think he's kind of hot, and I had a chance to talk with Bubba Watson and get up close and watch him play. These guys love that situation. Each of those that I mentioned, obviously Jordan Spieth, but it would be pretty fun, Bubba Watson games in form, to see a shootout. And the golf course, the way it sets up, I think it'll be very close, and there'll be a number of players in contention at the end. So I still believe in that DVR because it's going to be beautiful this weekend to play golf.
Absolutely. George, let me ask you real quick now, because you've got a son on tour who's competing in all the big tournaments and the majors. I mean, the playoffs, that's great. They can win a bunch of money at the end of the day if you happen to be that guy in a big old trophy. But when it comes to these golfers, I mean, this hasn't replaced winning a major in their dream, has it?
I'll tell you what it has done, and it's really cool. They do get truly excited and jacked up about – everybody in golf wants to be measured over a long period. I mean, four events, that's long enough to prove who is the best. So they look at it with from that standpoint, and they do. I have been really impressed with what this playoff system done, not just for the players, but also it's kind of exciting at the end of the year at the right time for all of golf. So there's a pinnacle, a bit of a Super Bowl. Hey, but I'll tell you right now, that money, there are a lot of players out there. Dustin Johnson gets jacked up over the money, and so does Bubba Watson, so does George Spieth, so does John Rahm, and I don't know of anybody that doesn't play golf, that plays golf, that doesn't get jacked up about playing for big cash now.
Ain't no doubt. George, thank you, my friend. Have a great weekend up in New York. Good luck to Wesley, and we'll talk to you next week, GB3, here on Sports Talk. We'll be right back.
7:20 it is. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Willie P, the Corn, Jar Mart, the whole gang in here. We are just 8 days away from the start of the college football season, and while the news day was kind of dominated by the Clemson Tigers with the brand new news of Dabo Swinney's 8-year, $54 million contract, we did get some Gamecock news, and it was straight from the source. Malik Young told the assembled media today at Williams-Brice Stadium following their Friday practice that he will be the starting left tackle for the South Carolina Gamecocks, beating out Dennis Daly, the junior college transfer. That was a battle that, Corn, you and I had basically been under the assumption that Young kind of had the fast track on, but to me, it does seem that that Daly, while came in and we kind of expected to have him see minutes right away, Young was just a little bit better conditioned than Daly was to start the year.
Well, if I'm South Carolina's fans, I'd be a little concerned about left tackle starting out. Malik Young is a guy that is still developing. He was on the right side last year. Now you've moved him to the most important offensive line position with a right-handed quarterback, the blind side. We'll see how he holds up. He's going to be tested right out of the gate against NC State. That could be a slaughter over there, and that's where South Carolina's got to be very careful. Maybe they plan to keep a running back in the backfield to help protect, or maybe put a tight end over there to help chip the defensive end and slow down that pass rush, whether it is Chubb or Street coming off that edge. That's going to be a big test over there. Again, you've got two guys, neither one really stepped up and grabbed the position and separated himself from the other. Young's going to start, but obviously Daly's going to be there ready to play. I'd be a little bit concerned about that spot going into that opening game.
As we heard earlier today from Malik Young, the starting left tackle of the Gamecocks.
It was a good competition because it made us both better at the end of the day, because there were some things that I needed to get better at and some things that he needed to get better at, even though he just got here. Like, we both made each other better throughout the process, and like we both got closer throughout the process because we both was helping each other with certain things. So at the end of the day, it's not like it caused like a rift between us. It really brought us together and made us better at the end of the day.
But does it still kind of drive you seeing another guy getting first team reps and kind of wanting those, or?
It doesn't drive me. I just know he has to get them to get the good competition, because he has to go against good every time. Like, he can't keep going against the Garnet per se. Sometimes he has to go against the Black and stuff like that.
You guys don't really get a lot of time to warm up. You're going against State first game, big-time defensive line, big-time defensive ends. How much of a challenge, how much are you looking forward to that matchup?
I'm really looking forward to it because I take every challenge as opportunity in my head, because I feel like that's opportunity for me to prove myself. Like, they have a really good defensive line, 4 legit guys, maybe 5. But at the end of the day, I view that as an opportunity for me.
That's Malik Young. Again, we heard later on in that conversation that Dennis Daly is still getting first-team reps, as he said in our conversation earlier today at Williams-Brice Stadium. So it's important for him to get on. One of the things that Eric Wolford did say to us, Corn, is that they want to be able to rotate at least 3 guys in off the bench, know who they're going to at least use as their first tackle, first guard, first center off the bench, etc. And they did say that they're going to try to travel between 8 and 9 offensive linemen for these road games. To me, like you said, it's a concern, definitely. But in my mind, I look at this and I say that this could mean a little bit more of what we've been hearing from the offensive coordinator and also from Jake Bentley, in that a lot of this is going to come down to Bentley not holding the ball for very long, a lot more quick outs, a lot more quick slants, so that these blockers don't have to necessarily protect for that long.
I would think so. I would think that would be all a part of it. Plus, of course, a better, more consistent running game would help with the offensive line too. Take some of the pressure off the passing game. Don't rely on the passing game so much and try and avoid being in second and long situations and certain passing situations where the defense can just pin its ears back and come at you with all kind of different stuff. So the Gamecock offensive line is going to be scrutinized from the opening snap here a week from Saturday, coming off a struggling year last year. New offensive line coach, same players for the most part. Daly being the newest addition as far as somebody stepping up and getting a chance to play. Everybody else that is on that offensive line went through last year in some form or fashion. So they should be better. There's no question they should be better from an experience standpoint and from having gone through the workouts and the spring all together. If they're not, then that'll be a disappointment, and it will hurt the offense, obviously. But I think they'll be better. I'm just saying that left tackle situation, to me, appears to be a little bit on shaky ground. I as an observer, I like positions to be nailed down going into the season opener, and the coaches having complete confidence in that guy being the guy at that position, especially one as important as the offensive line, especially one at left tackle. So, Young's right now going to be the starter. But, if he struggles, and Daly will be run out there very quickly, and we'll see if he can handle the job. And that's going to be crucial for South Carolina against a good defensive front like NC State. Now, this weekend, we got football. We've got Oregon State and Colorado State opening things up at 2:30 on Saturday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, and Colorado State is a 4-point favorite.
I'll be conveniently missing that one.
And UMass, Massachusetts plays Coastal Carolina next week.
Yes.
Hawaii and UMass. UMass is a 2.5-point favorite. I can remember when Hawaii was a respectable football program.
They had Colt Brennan. Colt Brennan was their quarterback for a while.
Yeah, they have slipped. And you've got South Florida and San Jose State. South Florida is a 22-point favorite. The quarterback, Kentrell Flowers?
Yes.
Is that what? No, is it? Yeah, it's Flowers, right?
Yeah.
The guy that was so good against South. It was not Kentrell. What's his first name? Starts with a Q. Starts with a Q. Kentrell's over at Irmo. This what's his name? Look it up. Starts with a Q. From last year in the bowl game. So good.
Charlie Strong and Quentin Flowers.
Yeah, Quentin. Charlie Strong makes his debut. What do you think? What do you think about Charlie Strong in South Florida? It's certainly a recruiting base for him. He proved at Louisville that at that level he could win and win big, especially he could build a very good defense. Can he do? South Florida had a great offense last year. Willie Taggart, of course, was an offensive-minded coach. Can Charlie do the offensive thing at South Florida while building a decent defense?
Well, it's weird because, at Texas, it seemed like he kind of got a raw deal just because of the fact that there was a guy who was a hotter commodity right there in state at the University of Houston, and Tom Herman, and he was kind of the hot flavor or the hot woman in the room, if you will, when you're thinking about the University of Texas. And I don't necessarily think that Charlie. I think Charlie was just a victim of the fact that there was somebody who they thought that they could get that brought different type of excitement. I think that the fans there never really embraced him at Texas, and I think that he probably deserved a little bit more, especially after that opening win against Notre Dame. Again, call it what you want, especially after the way that both of those programs kind of dipped after that one game. But that was a statement win for them at that time, and I think that the standards of Texas kind of have gotten a little bit too unreasonable in my mind, and I think this is a blessing for Charlie Strong, at least to come here and be in a different new, fresh situation.
Well, Texas is the new version of Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
By that I mean Tennessee had the great run under Phil Fulmer. They slipped a little bit for a couple of years. The decision was made to let Fulmer go. And they're still not back to those standards, and they're just now barely getting back to being respectable. Mac Brown, of course, won a national championship, had that great run at Texas, and he slipped a little bit. There's no question. But they didn't give him a chance to fix it, and they got rid of him, and then they went with Charlie Strong, and that didn't work. Now the flavor of the month is Tom Herman, and we'll see what he can do.
Will you be staying up for that 10 p.m. Eastern game between Stanford and Rice that's taking place in Australia?
If they're playing football on Saturday, I'll be watching. Stanford is only a 30.5-point favorite in that game. And you got Portland State and BYU. BYU is favored by 33.5.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There is a chance. If you're breathing, there is a chance. 800-956-7266. More on Sports Talk, including our predictions on the Gamecocks and Tigers. What do you think we're going to say? We'll tell you coming up. We are back, Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network here on a Friday night. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and Jar March. Jared Rogers Martin will pass along some high school football scores for you as they begin to materialize around the state. You heard David Shelton tell us earlier that Myrtle Beach High was playing an early game. They kicked off at 4 o'clock against Charlotte Christian, and they were getting beat pretty soundly. We'll pass along a final when we get it. And a reminder that we'll have our high school scoreboards for you tonight, beginning at 10 o'clock, at 10:30, and 11 o'clock. Hopefully you can find the scoreboards on our affiliates around the state. If not, we'll have them posted for you on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and you can get them there. Now, the regular season for USC and Clemson begins next Saturday. Clemson first at home against Kent State, and then South Carolina, 3 o'clock kickoff against NC State. So I thought it'd be a good time as we go into game week to talk about our predictions, how we think the two teams, USC, Clemson, will fare here in 2017. Being older, smarter, and better looking, I will go first. And then in terms of looks, Will go second, and then Jared, of course, will go last based on looks
and intelligence.
All right, does everybody agree with that? Does that sound?
I don't agree
reasonable?
with your opinion, but I'll agree with the order.
All right, so we'll begin with the defending national champions. I am not yet a believer in Kelly Bryant. I'm sorry. I can be made into a believer like everybody else.
With the corn. Stock down.
I'm going to have to see. This is a show me sort of thing, all right? I'm not in Missouri, but it's still a show me kind of thing.
You're throwing my alma mater state's phrase back in my face. I see how it is.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so, I'm looking at Clemson, and they're going to have a very good defense, no question about it. I think my gut tells me they're going to struggle on offense as they kind of, they're going to go through that transition here till they find that next great quarterback. Maybe he's already there. Maybe he's coming next year. Who knows? Clemson's going to go 9-3. I foresee the Tigers losing to Auburn. I foresee the Tigers losing to Florida State. And then I think they're going to lose one more. It could be Virginia Tech, could be Louisville, could be South Carolina on the road end of the season.
What?
I think they go 9-3.
What? Are you saying this right? You think that they're going to lose at USC?
Should we get our golden Spurs out to bet like last year, Corn?
Now, South Carolina has beaten Clemson before. You realize that,
I'm aware.
They're
aware.
not 0 for lifetime against Clemson.
I
understand. It has happened.
I understand. 68-42-4 is the all-time series between the two in favor of Clemson, though. So there is that.
So anyway, I've got the Tigers going 9-3.
Interesting.
Now, USC. You look at USC, and I think they're going to be better offensively. A little bit concerned about that left tackle position. That being said, I still think they're going to be much improved offensively across the board. Defensively, I think they're going to be better as well. They really had nowhere to go but up defensively for the most part, so I see a better defense. I am concerned about the kicking game. New punter, new place kicker, in what I'm expecting to be a bunch of close games. They can ill afford missed field goals. They cannot leave points off the board because of missed field goals. So whoever is their kicker had better get the job done because that's going to be very important. So with that all being said, I see the Gamecocks going 8-4 with a potential start of 4-1, maybe 3-2, but a 4-1, 3-2 start. Coming home, getting some wins. Middle of the year, they get the end of the season is more in their favor in terms of the home slate. 8-4, maybe even possibly if everything falls into place like I think it could, they could get to 9 wins.
Wow!
This year. It may come down to that Clemson game for both of them to see which one gets to a possible 9th win. Yes, indeed. I said it could come down to that game to see who gets a 9th win. But I got USC 8-4. And I have Clemson 9-3. Now you can pin that on your little napkin there and stick it on your bulletin board and call me back in late November and see how I did.
All right. So for me, I know how sometimes they might call you Tater Phil. I think I've heard that
No,
name.
they call me Tiger Phil. Will you get it right?
Well, they might be calling me.
They call me Corn Coot, and they call me Tiger Phil. If they only knew. The problem is those people on both sides, they just don't know the truth. Now, do they?
I don't know if they do or not, but they might be calling me Tiger Will because I am predicting another 10-win season for Dabo Swinney's Tigers. I think 10 wins opposite 2 losses. The only games that I'm really concerned about are the September 16th game at Louisville and the Florida State contest in November, despite the fact that they get that at home in Death Valley.
So you're not worried about Auburn in week 2?
I'm not worried about Auburn in week 2. I'm really not. I don't think that. I
you know, Auburn nearly beat them last year at Auburn.
I understand it, but
I think Auburn's better. I think Auburn's better.
I don't know if they're as good as advertised in my mind, and it's not about Kelly Bryant. It's more about the Clemson defense, and it's more about that schedule. I'm not buying all that Kool-Aid that Dabo Swinney is selling about this conference. I'm just not. I think it's really a 2-team deal, maybe 3 if you count Louisville. I think Clemson, Florida State, and Louisville kind of run the show, and everybody else is on a different level below them. And I think that Florida State might even be with this year on an exemplary level above both Clemson and Louisville. So I have the Tigers down to 10-2. Still very, very good season for them. Finishing just short of Florida State in the conference race. Moving to USC, I'm very similar to you. I have my concerns about the offensive line and the depth on defense. I have them dropping the opening game to NC State, but then I have them rattling off a bunch in a row all the way up until the Georgia game, and then I have them losing 3 out of their last 4 in November, losing to Georgia, Florida, and that November 25th game against Clemson. I have 8-4 is what I show with South Carolina, with losses to NC State, Georgia, Florida, and Clemson. And it's funny because of the way that whole thing goes around. There'll be a little bit of an excitement going into November at Williams-Brice Stadium with those 3 consecutive home games. We could be seeing some pretty rowdy stuff for that November 11th Florida game if the season does go the way that I think it will. But 8-4 for USC, 10-2 for Clemson.
So you see South Carolina beating Texas A&M but losing to NC State.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly
well.
it.
I mean, in terms of if they can only win one,
I am not a believer in A&M. Like that's the thing. Like everybody thinks that A&M is great because of Kyle Field. They don't have a quarterback, and they are not coming off of a very good year. They've basically had 3 consecutive years under Kevin Sumlin where they've fallen off the table, and they've come back every year and had a quarterback and had a good start, and then fallen off the table. Well, this year they don't even have a quarterback. They haven't even named the quarterback yet. So in my mind, I'm not a believer in A&M at all. Not a believer in A&M at all.
All right, 8-4. All right, and now for the most meaningless predictions of the pre-college football season, we bring you Jarmart.
Well, Jarmart, with the least intelligence, the least handsomeness, predicts probably the least out of the Gamecocks between the two of you. I see them coming out of the gates at 2-2. They dropped 2 of those first 4 games. I think the NC State game, you still got a young team. You've still got a really young defense, and you're going to see that against NC State. I see them not with the optimism of you guys with 8-4. I'm dropping them down to 6 wins. 6.
Wow.
On the other side. So game time,
another reason for everybody to hate you.
Get your towels out. And then on Clemson, I'm going to split the difference between the two. I'm like Will. I'm not too worried about Auburn. I think it'll be a tough game. I think Clemson will go down, but I think they ultimately pull that one out. I'm worried about their in-conference. I think there's another Pittsburgh like game from last year where you just can't predict what loss it is. And then Louisville and Florida State could be too much for their money this year. So I see them going 9-3.
Interesting.
Oh, wait a minute. You can't pick them to go 9-3. I picked them to go 9-3.
He just did.
Copying me again,
Well, I said 8-4, and you said 8-4 for USC.
He wants to look like me. Here's the thing. He wants to look like me. He wants to sound like me, and now he wants to copy my Clemson prediction. Go figure.
Hardcore.
I'm just trying to be you, Corn.
We all strive to be like you, Corn. We wake up every morning, and we strive for that.
Some things are just unachievable. Remember that. We'll be back. All right, heading down the home stretch. A reminder, high school scoreboards tonight here on South Carolina Radio Network. Coming down your way at 10, 10:30, and 11 o'clock. Some games, of course, are just now getting underway. We'll update some of those scores as people start tweeting out some of the results. On our website, SportsTalkSC.com, a couple of more days on our poll question, how will USC do in September? Of course, Gamecocks have 5 games in September. Majority of the voters believe, as of right now, the Gamecocks will go 4-1. Second largest group believes they'll go 3-2. Some folks think they'll go 5-0. There's a few who think they'll go 0-5. I think they could go 4-1. I do think they can go, especially if they win the opener against NC State. I would think they have a very good chance to go 4-1. Maybe I'm undervaluing Kentucky a little bit. Maybe I'm overvaluing Texas A&M. I hear what you're saying about Texas A&M. Whoever emerges as their quarterback, you know, is going to be a talented guy, but he'll be an inexperienced guy.
Do you? Do you know? Do you really know?
I do.
Do you really? Was Kenny Trill a talented guy?
I think he was.
Yeah.
I think he threw for 600 yards against the Gamecocks or something like that.
He did, and then he fell off the table like you do at A&M. You know, it's funny.
Well, I don't care what happens after they move on from South Carolina. It's all about what they do that particular game. They could never throw another completed pass the rest of their careers, but against the Gamecocks, he looked like Joe Namath out there.
Is it
with good legs?
Is it really? Is it really? Is it really?
Yeah. Who is Joe Namath?
By the way, you mentioned our website. I do want to at least tell folks that if they missed our interview with Dan Radakovich, the Clemson Director of Athletics, it is now up on SportsTalkSC.com as he talked about Dabo's brand new 8-year, $54 million deal. Great comments with us, including the incentive on getting it done before the season and the fact that he wants to make sure that money is not an option, or at least money is not a barrier, at least for keeping him in the fold at Clemson.
Well, money is always an option.
Money's not a barrier to keeping him. I mean, is what I meant to say. Now, I
want to remind folks about next week. Got a busy week next week. Monday, Zach Willis joins us. Tuesday is a Talking Tuesday with the coaches. Plus, we'll stop in over at Presbyterian College. Wednesday, we'll be up in Spartanburg, and we invite all of you who are up there. You don't have to be a Wofford or Furman fan. You can be a fan of any of the teams, but this is geared towards Wofford. This is really Wofford's night with us. Sports Talk Pigskin. I got to get this right. Sports Talk Pigskin Preview Live from Mesh the Terrace inside the Spartanburg Marriott on Church Street, just down from the Wofford campus. We'll be up there on Wednesday night visiting with the folks from Wofford, previewing the showdown with Furman. Should be a lot of fun. Hope to see a bunch of you out there. Please make plans to join us there. And then we move on through the week with a stop Thursday. We'll need this stop too, Will. Group therapy.
Yes.
Steve Tannehill's group therapy on Thursday. We're definitely going to need that. And then, of course, Friday, getting ready for the weekend. The Bojangles Southern 500 will be over at Darlington, doing some stuff there during the day. Maybe over there for the show. Got to see how things time out. Maybe over there for the show. Got to see when they're qualifying. You know, last year they didn't qualify until Saturday, so I got to figure out what their schedule's going to be, and we'll figure all that out. But it's just going to be a crazy week. It always is when the first week comes up. You know, you plan and you wait for it to get here, and you think you've got everything covered, but there's always something left, and you're going here and there and trying to put all the pieces together.
And if I believe you, Corn, I might have to do Friday's show from my car as I drive up to Clemson for that opening game because of the
Well, you probably should make plans to leave early because it's sold out.
Yes.
National championship team returning home. It's a 12 o'clock game, and I can tell you, and this is no joke, I mean, those are the worst traffic games for Clemson because everybody's coming at about the same time.
Exactly.
It's not like the 3 o'clock game when people are arriving in the morning or the 6 or 7 o'clock game.
I'm not making like I'm not
coming at the same time.
I'm not making like I'm heeding the warning, but I will make sure that my first impression on the Sports Talk game coverage community is done correctly and done to perfection.
Of course, listen, driving into Charlotte for a game at the Panther Stadium is no piece of cake either. You know, you got the fans coming from the Palmetto State, you got the NC State fans coming in from the Tar Heel States, and they get their normal traffic in Charlotte. That's not going to be easy.
I just know that
Jarmart laughed at people whenever you had to do the Panthers game. I rode it to the first trolley line and rode public transportation in and just watched all the cars on the interstate.
I can guarantee you this, though, Corn. My week 2 commute will be the shortest commute that any of us takes this season. Because where I'm staying basically 100 steps from Faurot Field in Columbia.
By the way, tell us about the news coming out of Mizzou today.
They they had a unanimous approval from their board of curators with regards to a brand new South End Zone stadium facility upgrade. They're going to build some new premium seating in that South End and some new football buildings. The new capacity actually will be lower than what was initially thought of when they started talking about this project. It's going to be about 65,000. They had grown it to about 70, but as I've tried to tell you, the fan base has taken on some significant apathy, not just involving the off-the-field incidents involving the campus and the alleged racism and things of that nature, but also just the fact that the team hasn't been very, very good. So they're trying to focus on the seats that they can actually fill right now versus actually trying to expand and see if they wanted to at least put it in there. So they're going to try to make sure to make that happen.
And what's the seating going to be?
To be 65K in that range.
And what is it now?
It's around 68, 70 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they built that second deck to try and get it up over 70. But now basically that South End is going to have less seats, but more premium seats and more suites as well.
Okay. We got this fight tomorrow night. Mayweather, McGregor, they had the weigh-in. They both made it through the weigh-in. Neither one punched the other. There was plenty of mouthing off going on by McGregor. Listen, I don't know the first thing. Don't really care about it that much. I'm not
but you'll watch.
What's it, UFC? I'm not a UFC fan at all. But I don't believe Mr. McGregor has a snowball's chance in hell against Mayweather. You do not walk into a ring with an undefeated champion boxer, even though he is 40, and you're putting on the gloves, the real gloves, for the first time in a professional setting. This thing will be over in 5 minutes of boxing time. I give it to the 2 minutes. 2 minutes deep into round 2, McGregor will be asleep.
Let me educate you on something, Phil. The one thing,
he can't kick, he can't tackle,
it has nothing
he can't
to do.
wrestle him. He's got to box him.
It has nothing to do with McGregor. It has everything to do with Mayweather. The man is a showman. And there has been so much money and so much buildup and so much hype for this fight that even if he has to pull him up with his own 2 hands, he will do everything he possibly can to milk this fight for the full duration. There's absolutely.
I don't believe that at all.
Oh, come on.
Are you serious?
I'm absolutely serious.
Oh, no, you're crazy.
I'm not crazy.
If he's got a chance to knock him out in the first minute, he's going to knock him out in the first minute. No, because
here's the thing. All of this hype surrounding.
He's going to get paid regardless if it goes 1 minute or it goes
But
to
Mayweather is a promoter. He is a masterful promoter. He is not a knockout specialist.
Over. The promotion is over. They're going to be in the ring.
They want to try everything they possibly can to get 3 fights out of this.
And I'm not convinced that we're not going to see a kick in this fight. I think there's a high likelihood that if you get late, you'll see something dirty from McGregor to end it with a kick.
The DQ situation is interesting because if McGregor does kick and gets disqualified, he doesn't get paid. So that's the one thing that is in that.
I'm telling you, round and minute, 2 minutes in round 2, it's over.
I think we at least get to 10 rounds. We at least get to 10.
You think 10 rounds?
I think we at least get to 10 rounds.
I think we get 5 tops.
Any of you? Okay, now are you going to go watch it somewhere? Are you going to buy it at home?
I'm not going to buy it at home. I know there are a couple bars that are showing it for a cover fee. I'd rather do that than buy it myself.
Jarmart might find something on the internet for free.
They're trying to sue all. They're trying to sue all these companies now that are trying to illegally stream it. You might end up.
I watched the last one on.
We
Twitter.
might not have a producer Monday if they find you in jail for illegally streaming the fight.
All right, guys, have a great weekend. Don't forget the high school scoreboard shows tonight. Thank you, Willie P, and thank you, Jarmart. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here Monday night for Sports Talk.